Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei got harem with Raynare and Momo? Part 3. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. A few moments after their declaration, Issei and Drake changed the topic to Drake's exclusive powers. It has already been about an hour after his awakening. Considering the preparation time for school, only one more hour is given for the talk. He couldn't skip school. After all, that's like broadcasting to the supernatural. I have a problem so I won't go for my routine. Unless the situation doesn't let him, he needs to cut it short. As for the power, Issei didn't expect any groundbreaking ones, just hoping he could make use of them to have a higher survival chance. To put it simply, all of my abilities, diluted though, could be used as your arsenal. Your sacred gear is called boosted gear by the general populace. Sacred gear. From Drake's explanation, the leader of heaven has given this power in all kinds of shapes for humanity to resist supernatural forces. Humans themselves are weak. They will just die meaninglessly in front of absolute power. That's where the gift, sacred gear comes in, such as his current partner, Drake. Although, Issei looks at Draig the glowing circle, strangely after hearing that. Isn't it ironic we became an easy target because of it? I can't deny that. Even Drake himself shrugged helplessly at that bastard deity, putting humans like Issei in this kind of situation. If it's voluntary, then it's the individual's responsibility to hold their respective powers along with the consequences. Both of them couldn't say anything about that. But well, Issei does not belong to this category. Whether that god missed this fuck up or not, it doesn't matter as the boy becomes the black sheep that was targeted by fallen angel and the devils. Setting that aside though. Drake-san, what is your ability? Multiplication of power for every 10 seconds. What? Instantly, Issei's mind stopped working, unable to process that easily. His mouth gapes openly wide for that earth-shattering ability, able to be used by the host immediately. The three factions with their long-seated grudge united even for momentary, for subjugating this dragon, he could imagine easily that Drake's strength was no joke. Even if the container was a weaker species of a reincarnated devil like him, its abilities shouldn't be taken lightly. The previous hosts of boosted gear could attest to that. Still, that downgrade form of said ability was ridiculous. No, really, Issei couldn't even comprehend how a bugged existence like this could even be defeated. Seriously? Seriously? No joking. Not joking at all. He repeatedly confirms to his partner for not hearing it wrong, but Drake's instant confirmation leaves him with no doubt. The dragon's amused voice could be heard clearly too. It even makes him wonder how a cheat character like him could even exist in the first place. Little did he know, Issei would lament terribly, facing beings with similar levels of Drake's constantly like raid bosses. That's a story for another time though. That is very impressive. Nothing more could be said by the dumbfounded teenager. If the initial start was this overpowered, then it's not that strange for all three factions desperate to put him down instantly or be their ally. Are all sacred gears broken like you? On that, Drake snorts loudly, as if expressing his disbelief that his powers are something that could be given to everyone freely like cheap pieces of jewelry. Of course not. In the supernatural world, boosted gear is considered as longiness, the power to kill godlings. This time, not even words could be formed anymore. He somewhat realizes this dragon is not normal by any means, but for able to kill those immortals, even in the potential scenarios. You got to be fucking kidding me. It's understandable for him to be in disbelief. Sorry to say, Issei. I'm speaking 100% truth. If it makes you feel better, there's no record of the longiness users killing a god successfully. Issei released a sigh of relief hearing that. While it's not something to celebrate, it's a silver lining for his increasing worth to not be higher than ever. His current situation already made him a big target for many people. He doesn't want more paying attention to him than now. Although, he frowns confusedly after hearing the plural adjective. Surely. There are 12 sacred gears considered as longiness, including me. It looks like he didn't mishear it. The reincarnated devil rubs his tired expression with both of his hands. He really wants to ask God to help him from this insanity, but now he's more afraid of said God smiting him for disrespect. Rather, he even wants to ask him, how is it a good idea to give humanity these kinds of powers randomly like a lottery? Irresponsible doesn't cover it. He even suspected that God was freaking high, and unbelievably it was, for making it in the first place. Groaning at the other 11 people that could rival natural disasters, Issei put his mind back on track. Specifically, to the booster gear itself. What's the limit of it? The power is amazing and all, but surely there's a limit or a condition to fulfill. Hearing his inquiry, the Crimson Dragon nods approvingly with a satisfied smile. Just like he suspected, Issei was not blinded by the power, but worried about how to use it properly. In the character department, he really lucked out on having Issei as his partner. Of course, there's a limit. Firstly, it is realistically impossible to multiply your forces endlessly. It mainly depends on your stamina and physique. If either two of these reach the breaking point. Hearing until that point, Issei immediately realizes the weakness of boosted gear. It's just like a balloon. If you put too much air on it, then the accumulated power will disperse. Everything will explode. There were quite a few cases of his previous hosts arrogantly thinking they could be the strongest, which ended in early unnatural death. Exactly. The 10-second interval is also a huge obstacle, isn't it? Huo. Inside the landscape, the Crimson narrowed his eyes satisfactorily hearing that. A growling sound filled with amazement filled the teen's bedroom. As expected, he noticed the key issue of boosted gear only within a short time frame. Yeah, that's a big drawback, alright. I don't know much about battle, but it definitely is going to be at an extremely fast pace. Raynard was moving like lightning for killing me. The grimace appeared on the reincarnated devil's face, reminding the pain from yesterday. Well, that's true, but don't use that fallen angel as standard. Six-winged like her are considered as a veteran who knows many tricks inside in her sleeve. It's not strange you couldn't keep up with her movement. Which is true. The population of fallen angels could range from 100,000 to millions. That's him being generous in the estimation, considering their low birth rate. After all, beings like her in the rank are only about thousands at best. Issei understood that too. It's almost impossible for the fallen angels to have many personnel with powerhouse classes in their community. If they did, they would already win the war easily. But well, his case is far away from the usual ones. He needed powers that he could use now, not later. And yet, she was sent to eliminate me. I don't know whether they knew about Dragsen or not, but it's better to think they already did. I know I'm being slightly paranoid, but we can't be careless about it. You are not wrong. If he has connections to confirm it, maybe he could have breathing room. Sadly, Issei was a newcomer to this world in every sense of it. Not only powers, but he doesn't have the resources or the right people to tackle the problems. One more thing. This is my guess, but I don't think she went home after that. What do you? Pausing, Drake thought about it for a few seconds. Then, he narrowed his eyes speculatively, thinking about the possibility of that. If he considers the fact that this town is where the devils reside, who could reincarnate other beings to their species? The answer, it's highly probable. This is bad. Agreeing with the dragon, Issei gives a sullen nod and a tiring sigh. Now he could finally understand why Issei was constantly worried for his own life. Anybody will be if they are put into this insane dilemma. Yep, very bad. If I'm not careful, I could die on the way to school. The dragon was left silent to that possibility too. Issei is just somebody who only knows the supernatural for less than an hour. It's not about can or not, but practically impossible to defeat her. How about asking for help from the devils? I know you don't feel good about them, but surely they won't let you die again. It's not that I don't consider it, but this situation is too late gaining support from my neighbors. Sighing, Issei shook his head slowly, as if it was expecting too much on formless hope. To be fair, it was a sound idea. If he ignores the complicated feeling of relying on his master and their colleagues, there's a fair chance of retaliation with him staying alive. He's clear-minded enough to see what he could and couldn't do in this state too. However, there are two glaring problems with that. Firstly, Issei don't even have their names. I don't know their identities yet, Drake-san. If I did, I wouldn't be this worried nor skeptical of their intentions. Again, he couldn't refute his words. While it is ideal for the devils to be in his school, that's just wishful thinking. Both of them couldn't leave their fate by chance of luck. Moreover, he doesn't know about how the devil society works. Issei would consider it extremely lucky if they treated him as a servant at best. Secondly, the time period of meeting them. Even if we knew though, wouldn't it be better for Raynard to kill me before I regroup with them? We are talking about a seasoned pro who doesn't leave gaps in their plan. Surely she or the manipulator behind her consider the devil's side recruiting me before or after my death. Damn. Countless times, the Crimson Dragon was left speechless by Issei's sharp reasoning. Once again, he was not wrong. She truly could consider him being revived and enlisted to the devil faction. If the opportunity came, she'd just kill him again to complete the job properly. In fact, that's what Drake would do too. Is he really a high schooler? The way he adapts to the situation, the cautious approach to this unexpected danger, and the flexibility to consider every factor laid on the table. Not only that, he's someone who could ignore fleeting emotions or grudges to focus on the core of the problem. It's true that all of his actions could be replicated by anybody on the supernatural side. It's not something impossible either way. However, that's with the prerequisite of them living to it in their whole lives. Looking at him cupping his chin while humming in thought, Drake feels a slight shiver on his corporal spine. He was definitely just a powerless boy, but that's in the present. Give him enough time and proper guidance. Elsha. Belzard. I think your glories will soon be overshadowed by him. Reminiscing two of his strongest hosts, he compared them with this boy who was equivalently the definition of a weakling. However, his instinct tells him that Issei could be a greater monster than any other Sekiryute possible, either in the past, present, or future. Yeah, you must stay alive, Issei. Right now, he's surer than ever that Haidu Issei is special in a certain sense. While his background is ordinary, his adaptability and determination to survive in any way possible are not normal in every sense. If Issei could hear the dragon's thoughts, he doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. To him, he was just a desperate normie clinging for his dear life. He's not some up-and-coming figure who'll stir the world. Such words will slap him back in the near future saying, told you so. In any case, Issei concludes that asking for help from the devil is not feasible after a few minutes. Yeah, I don't think we could expect anything from them. Rather, if they didn't expect this situation without giving me any kind of signal, much less an introduction, it's definitely not good. Frowning distastefully at that fact, Drake nodded slowly to his partner's guess. He didn't expect much from the devils either, but hearing this makes his opinion of them lower than ever. In the end, it went back to the start, which is his sacred gear. Is there any kind of sudden power-up we can use, Drake-san? Hesitantly, Issei asked his partner in a careful manner. He himself knew how shameless and ridiculous he sounded right now, but he couldn't think of any more tangible solution. The Crimson Dragon could only sigh hopelessly at their situation too. The saying stuck between a rock and a hard place fits them to a T. As for Issei's question though. It's not that we don't, but the price for it is too much. That's obvious. But is it possible? Blinking repeatedly, Drake looked at his partner one more time with narrowed eyes. From Issei's side, the green circle on his left hand grows more brightly than ever. Issei. I'm not joking. The consequences of asking for that kind of power are not cheap at all. It will stay with you for your entire life. Hearing his serious tone, Issei only sighed resignedly as if he knew for miles along. While appreciating the warning, his partner misses out on one crucial fact. If I have the life to live for in the first place. That's. Shaking his head sideways, the reincarnated devil only lets out a smile that lacks strength to it. Drake-san, we are in a stalemate. Either we die sooner or later. Trailing off meaningfully, the Crimson Dragon doesn't need to hear the rest. He frowns regretfully as if pondering that any other kind of solution is truly not feasible. Which is none. He himself couldn't think of a way to save him in this shitty circumstance either. He really doesn't want to resort to this. But all of Issei's suspicion has merit to it. Either they die now or prolong their life longer for a chance of surviving better. Everything could be solved at that time, but not now. I understand. We don't have the luxury of being picky. Yeah, sorry Drake-san. It's my fault for being weak. With a humorless chuckle, Issei mutters his words filled with self-derision. It was blunt. Issei didn't hide away from the fact that everything was caused by him not having anything to turn the table. Drake himself knew it, but he didn't want to blame solely on Issei either. As his partner said, blaming others won't solve shit. Balance breaker. That's the sudden power-up for overcoming the situation. That name is kinda ominous. A slight snicker leaves at Drake's mouth. He didn't refute it. Its power is considered taboo by the populace for good reason. Only the people who master the gear to the maximum can use this forbidden power. Like you said, Issei. Booster gear's fatal weakness is the 10-second interval. Not only that, the more you use it, the more exhaustion you feel. In other words, it's a weapon focusing on shorter battles. Balance breaker is another level for it. Gulping loudly, the reincarnated devil looks at the dragon nervously. What kind of another level are we talking about? To put it simply, you could cut out the interval and boost as much as the user wishes. Moreover, the accumulated fatigue you feel will be offset by wearing a chainmail that raises your basic parameters overall. I'm sure you understand how broken that is. My gosh, that is just unfair on every level. Yep. Ignoring the ridiculousness of it, Issei folded his hands in thought. The boy himself is just a newly reincarnated devil. He doesn't have a sudden jump of ability increase or have the know-how of magic like Raynare-san. Although not much, Drake's abilities and the balance breaker could be used as a trump card. Probably. If he could use it though. The price. Because he hasn't heard the humongous penalty for using it. Slowly, the dragon opens his mouth. As a person who treasures his humanity, it's a double-edged sword. I'll transform your body into a dragon. Blinking repeatedly, Issei looked at his partner confusedly. He expected lots of things like burning his life force or something severe but. That's it. Heck, you can even do that. He didn't expect this. As for Drake's eyed, he's befuddled by Issei's nonchalant tone. It even makes one think, what could be so terrible about it? It sounds impressive. Impressive my ass. It's fucking dangerous. Raining down his raging emotions, the dragon explained the consequences of it one by one. Issei, maybe you don't understand, but transforming into a dragon is abandoning the rest of your humanity. If we do this, you can't go back forever. Not only that, the more parts of your body terraformed into a dragon, the freedom for its movement will be replaced by me. With this, he would understand the heavy cost of using the balance breaker. If he considers the fact of him being a devil now, maybe taking one whole arm will be enough for a few seconds of balance breaker. However, reality surprised him more than ever. Instead of being in despair. Oh? I heard some very good things just now. He was smiling ear to ear. As if all those burdens are something to be happy about. Are you even listening, you will? I'm not human anymore. With that, all momentums from the dragon were completely gone. He was completely caught flat-footed by Issei's impassiveness from it. No, that's just the beginning. The rest of his words are going to utterly blow his brains out. See? I'm not a human, but a devil now. That's sad, but nothing I can do about it. But this? Becoming a dragon by my choice. Now that's what I can take. This man, Issei looks and acts normally like any teenager before this happens. But because the shackle to be normal is completely gone, his mind went out of the box entirely. Not stopping from his tirade, Issei continues his explanation. In fact, he looks cheerful about this unexpected gift coming to his lap. He raises one finger of his right hand, expressing there's a lot of good things coming from it. There are many reasons to be a dragon. 1. I could offset the heavy cost of boosted gear. Just this reason alone makes me hook and sink. Which is reasonable. He's caught in a situation where he has to throw his weight around in order not to be struck badly. Just that only will make Issei allow Drake to make his body as a dragonoid. But hearing the other so-called costs. He's banking it all. Raising his second finger, Issei looks at his left hand with a knowing look. It's not like I want my body to be changed until I can't recognize it. But I think we both know there's no option left, right? Drake can't deny it. He won't, but still, from your case, shouldn't you feel defensive for changing your body? Shaking his head left and right, Issei refutes the dragon's words for his slight misunderstanding. He wasn't happy for the devil to change his physique, not because of becoming one. Because I could trust you, Drake-san. You have been open with me from the beginning until now. That's why I could leave my body to you. He had no words to give for that. Really, just this 1 hour, he talked more than any other hosts he had. Moreover, this one particularly has faith in him by entrusting his own body to the dragon. It almost made him in tears for not being viewed only as a good partner. But as a friend and family. Aren't you scared? I might take advantage of you. No, you definitely won't. It was an instant denial, unlike his cautious approach. Instead of laying down the reason, he just smiled brightly at the dragon. His entire soul screams of acceptance toward the dragon. Just like Raynare. I believe in you. Only 4 words. But those 4 words have underlying emotions of trust, outweighing his apprehensiveness and suspicion. Issei knows how foolish and dangerous it is to rely on practically a stranger. They were acquainted only for about an hour. That kind of time length is only for giving a polite introduction, not sacrificing his whole body for it. It was insanity to the highest order, plain and simple. Drake thought Issei was a cautious person who prioritized his life the most. In most cases, this impression is not wrong as Issei will bolt out of the way if he senses any kind of unnecessary trouble coming to him. Now though? You're fucking crazy. He couldn't help cussing at his partner whose actions were full of contradiction. To live, he'll sacrifice his body. To retaliate against the devils and fallen angels, he trusted the dragon inside his body, noting that has never been talked to until now. A tiring sigh let out from the dragon's mouth. Hearing his curse with an exasperated tone and sigh, the man himself only scratches the back of his head awkwardly. He himself knew how much illogical and plain nuts of his acts. Even he too wants to have slow and gradual progress for the safer result. Well, it's slow, the foundation for it won't be shaken. However, both of them know. They don't have the luxury nor the privilege for that kind of ample time. Coughing, he signaled the dragon back to their topic. Issei raised his 3rd finger. In fact, this is the most important one. 3rd, you can have the right to use my body. Have you truly lost your mind? How could that be a good thing? That's just called possession. Even the Crimson Dragon couldn't stay calm on that anymore. There's a limit on how much craziness Drake could cope with. As for the boy himself, he only snickers as if the dragon worrying was the funniest thing ever. I'm going to be very honest, Drake-san. I'm saying this at risk of offending you. Taking a deep breath, Issei spoke out about an evaluation no other owner of booster gear has ever done. The boosted gear and the balance breaker are practically useless for me. You have some thick nerves saying that in front of me. In the mental landscape, the scene of Drake's crumpled face with a growling mouth was clearly seen. The fires of his surroundings suddenly go brighter and hotter in response to his high emotions hearing that. It was truly playing with fire. Literally. Pacipping his temple for his careless mouth, Issei immediately opened his mouth for additional explanation. He really doesn't want to offend his lifelong partner, but his blunt words really make things worse if not careful. That's not what I mean. Yes, your power is amazing and all, but there's no meaning to it if the ones who use it are total beginners. Our enemies won't twiddle their thumbs while I build my skill. That's just plain idiotic. Oh. Just like being dosed with cold waters, his rage immediately cooled down with those sensible words. Except for idiots and arrogant fools, nobody sane would want their enemies to fatten themselves without interruptions. This saying especially applies to boosted gear. What Issei meant was simple. No matter how much boost in parameters Issei has with balance breaker, it amounts to zero if he doesn't have the proper arsenals or know how to use it. That's why the consequences of Drake being able to take control of his body are convenient. No, should he say it's the perfect answer? As if realizing Issei's intention, Drake has a foreboding thought for his next words. Issei, you don't tell me. Yep. Nodding, Issei concludes his last reason. You are going to use my body to fight them. This is fucking crazy. Such words reverberate through the dragon's mind again and again. Nobody would ever think to give their right for their body to another, sacred gear or not. The reason can't be more obvious. That person will be at risk of losing his physique. And now his host is giving the go-ahead for Drake to use it explicitly. To add to that, he could modify his body as much as he wished for a larger breathing room. Once again, the Crimson Dragon couldn't help but spit out the harsh words from his mouth. You insane lunatic. Chuckling a little at his curse words, Issei responded calmly, as if he was just ordering food to eat. You have to be a little crazy in this world. If not, I won't be able to survive, much more to protect my close ones. You're sure? A single nod was given. I'm not saying you to possess my body just for fighting, Drake-san. I mean it when I say we both are Sekiryuite. Rather than leeching each other, it's much more productive to cooperate fully for a shared goal. Besides. A cheeky smile appeared on his face. I could repay my debt to you too. With this, you won't be stuck in prison just for existing. Ah, you really? An exasperated sigh released from his mouth. However, if Issei is able to look at his partner, his eyes are glistening in moisture from his host's heartful words. In the constantly taken position, he was given the most perfect gift ever. How could he not be touched by the boy's sincerity? Again and again, this boy never seems to stop surprising him. Rather, it's the first time for Drake to be in this kind of position. All possessors of booster gear never care much for the +1 companion in it, much more in making a deal. But this, he was sure. On the entire history, only him would be this daring and foolish. However, he didn't hate it. Instead, the feeling of reinvigoration rising from his entire soul corresponds to this hopeful emotion. He could be truly alive again. Very well. I accept your proposal. Hi do Issei, this I promise you. Your enemies will be burned by my fires. Your precious ones will never be harmed as long as I exist. I swore it by name. It was a solemn declaration uncharacteristic of the former callous rampaging dragon. There was no falsehood in his words to deceive or exploit his users. All it has is endless trust and care for his partner, who reaches his hand to the dragon unflinchingly. Hearing the dragon's words, Issei released a trembling breath of relief. His tense shoulders are finally loosened from a bit brighter prospect. His enemies are still dangerous. His companion's intentions are unclear too. Everything was full of uncertainties and dangers. But, with this dragon by his side. Thank you. He could finally stand properly. After that, they went to the topic of terraforming for Haidu Issei. Although, it's a bit surreal for the person itself accepted as it is, the dragon who'll do it feels apprehensive, as if opening the Pandora's gate. So, how do we do the transformation? Not much. Usually, I do this for the users who are in desperate situations or in need of immediate power. You just need to lie down and leave everything to me. Tapping his chin in thought, Issei considered his words slowly. Then, he proposed his idea. How about starting it from my heart? The heart is the main core of the human, pumping blood to the entire body. If you change that, you could control my entire body, theoretically. Blinking repeatedly, Drake narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. They can only do this once, so everything must be precise and careful. As for the risk of failure, the dragon has hundreds of times of experience from the boy's predecessors, so it's minuscule to none. As for Issei's proposal, it was good for short and long-term periods. It's not bad. No, it's the most optimal start. Terraforming oneself into a dragon couldn't be done in just a few hours. If so, there will be slow but visible side effects happening to the body, unable to cope with its sudden changes. But if it's from the heart. Yes. Your idea has merit, Issei. In fact, that's the best beginning for the greatest result in the end. Oh. Looks like my average wisdom could get some good answers. More like ridiculous, you mean. In response to his nonchalant words, the Crimson Dragon snapped at him deadpanned. Good partner or not, what's crazy is still crazy. Sighing helplessly, Drake lets out a wry smile. This is also the first time of him doing a transfusion with no tension or sense of rejection. Setting his mind on track, Drake tells Issei to relax and close his eyes. The less tension from the body, the faster and better changes it will be. Immediately obliging, he put his head to his pillow while overlapping his hands in his stomach. With this, the preparation is done. The hard part for Issei is just letting the mental gate open to Drake. The rest is left to the dragon wholeheartedly. It feels like sleeping in a coffin. Letting out a bitter smile at his morbid thoughts, Issei repeats a cycle of deep breaths while still closing his eyes. You will lose consciousness for a few moments, but there'll be no pain from it. After all, you won't reject me, right? Not even one bit. Alright. Once again, thank you Issei. The next time you woke up. You will never be the same anymore. Human, devil, and now as a dragon. Such cases could probably be counted on one hand happening in the long passage of history. The first time is unwillingly, but this one is definitely from his own will. He can't make excuses nor even try to. People will condemn him. They will slander him as an abomination. They will propagandize him as a monster to subjugate. His close ones may be disillusioned by it. He knew all of this but still took the risk. Nothing would be gained if you sacrificed nil. On changing the world, you will realize how pitifully small and worthless your actions will be. Issei knows this as he was once a normal person who had nothing special. Therefore, he will throw away all of his lingering regrets, his old mindset, and his future. Everything of his past self will be burned. He wouldn't even think or dream of going back anymore. But this, Issei of the mediocre is finally incinerated completely. What is going to be born? A force of nature that shook the world. Currently, Momo's emotion is in a jumbled mess. Kun, is he going to be alright? Kuo Academy, the front gate. When given the position to check the students' attendance, Momo absent-mindedly does her assignment while her head is in the clouds, metaphorically speaking. She was doing her work diligently, but people who pay attention to her in detail will notice her distracted state. Some people look at her with furrowed brows in confusion, while her classmates look at her knowingly with teasing smiles. After all, it's already an open secret that she is in huge crush of the chestnut-haired boy in her same class. As for the girl herself, she couldn't help but be reminded of the meeting 2 days ago. Her morning was as usual. Waking up, brushing her teeth, taking a bath, and saying goodbye to her parents. From that point, everything was per her normal cycle. What's not normal was when he met the boy and his acquaintances. It was a fallen angel. Fallen angel. The archenemy of her current race. Although she doesn't know her exact identity or the purpose of coming to this town, there's no doubt it's related to Issei. For what purpose did she come to this town and meet with the boy? She could only take a guess. A few bad guesses. Frowning heavily at their terrible tendencies toward humans, Momo gripped the pen with a stronger grip, imagining that possibility happening to her close friend. On that day, she did feel a stung in her heart when her classmate introduced his girlfriend bashfully. While it'll be a lie to not feel jealous, all of those dark emotions are replaced by full-blown wariness and suspicions. How badly she wanted to stop him from going on a date. How much she wanted to expose her identity and the danger from her bringing to his footsteps. But her worry didn't disperse. Rather, it wasn't allowed to. Remembering the warnings given by the student council president, Sauna Shitori-senpai, the silver-haired girl gritted her teeth frustratedly. However, she was smart enough to know the underlying messages underneath it, stopping any kind of reckless actions. Therefore, she could never try nor even dream to stop him. Warnings are the softer words. In truth, she was forbidden to even be involved in this case. Most of all, she even realized who made her not to dip her toes into this. Damn it. Unconsciously, she gnashed her teeth in frustration at her state of powerlessness. Ria's Gremory. The great beautiful lady of Kuo Academy. The leader of the occult club she founded. The future heiress of the long lineage of the Gremory family of the high-class devils. If she listed all of the titles assigned to her, it would take an hour for every one of them. However, the most important title is the future heiress in this situation. Moreover, the said privilege given for it makes her banned from being involved, much to her frustration and sense of hopelessness. It was an open secret there was a deal for the red-haired devil to poach Issei before Sauna herself. She's planning to recruit him, isn't she? The Great War led the devils to pay hefty tolls in every segment, especially in lineage and population. Nowadays, out of all 72 original noble families, not even half survive to the present. Therefore, to save this predicament, the smartest devil and Mayu in entire history devise an object to stop the dam itself from collapsing, so to speak. Said object is called Evil Pieces. An item that reincarnates other species into devils, excluding exceptions like deities for obvious reasons. She knows all of this because she was told by her master herself, who is the Student Council President, SCP. Yes, her leader and the occult club's president are the devils who have the evil pieces due to their pedigree. She was also recruited by Sauna Shitori herself by offering Momo to be a devil. Therefore, it's not strange for Grimmery Senpai to try recruiting Issei into their world and repopulate their society. Considering the sign of sacred gear inhibiting the boy, such desire was perfectly normal for the red-haired heiress. While a bit sad about them following a different master, she was giddy about the possibility of Issei joining their world. After all, she won't need to put a wall between them, nor be restricted in her decision relating to the boy anymore. Such hope fizzled out instantly after thinking about it deeper. After all, Issei joining this world will make him be exposed to its excessive cruelness and cutthroat community. Thinking of her current situation and species, she couldn't help but sigh forlornly at her past choice with a bitter smile. Am I doing the right thing? Doubts about their own choices are natural for all intelligent living beings to experience. Changing races doesn't make all worries disappear. It only makes her see the world through a different lens than usual. She, being reincarnated by SCP, was not able to integrate with society normally. Initially, Momo didn't worry much about the benefits given. The devil's long age and ability to use magic. It far outweighs the cons. Not only that, but with her choice, her parents and the household won't ever worry about funds for a few generations. Money, eternal youth, and bright stability in the future. What's to think twice about getting those benefits? Now though? She couldn't help but regret it a little. Living as a devil for months makes her realize belatedly everything is not what it seems. There's always a price for everything, especially for seemingly good things. Looking down at her fidgeting hands, Momo smiled wistfully. Haidu-kun. Haidu Issei, a normal high schooler. A normal boy who lived a simple life. A mediocre person who seemingly won't achieve big in this small town. Well, it seemed rude to think that way. She was a practical person after being raised in a business-oriented family. Small communities consequently led to smaller chances for larger success. And yet, she couldn't help chasing his silhouette with her eyes constantly. The way he talked to her cheerfully with no hidden agenda, the way he paid attention to her in detail, but not offensively showing his care, the way he never leered at her, but made her feel like the most attractive girl in the room, from the admiration shown in his golden brown eyes. When people flattered her due to above-average looks with their transparent desire, only he looked at her with the clearest eyes ever. What's funny is that he wasn't her ideal type of boyfriend. If only for physical looks and demeanor, the Prince of Kuo Academy is her ideal type. It was ironic to the finest. Instead of the perfect gentleman, her target of interest is completely invested in the mediocre boy. Strangely, she didn't feel averse to her attraction. Instead, he just felt right to her. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Sighing melancholically in his mind, Momo lets out a wry smile. It looks like emotions and logic are always working separately. No matter how much she knew her current feeling was wrong, she couldn't help it. She, Hanakai Momo, was hopelessly in love with him. No matter how much she wanted to deny it, she couldn't lie to her faster-than-normal beating heart when she thought of him. At this point, it'll be a denial and losing game. But, her crush was stopped even before she stepped the starting line. Her status as a newly changed race won't let her. Not only does the difference in lifespan lead to an obvious problem, but the difference in everything, such as culture, in their respective worlds, makes her unable to compromise anything. That's why she refused his advances, even if it felt ripping her own heart to do so. Not because she doesn't want to, but couldn't. That one word makes all the difference. She didn't want Issei to enter this world either, for the countless dangers lurking in it are disheartening, to say the least. That's why she was so frustrated with that fallen angel girl accompanying her crush for an unknown goal. Imagine her despair and grief for being unable to help him. Most of all, she can't blame nor point fingers at Grimmery Senpai too, for their status difference are too big. She, who was supposed to have feelings for the boy, couldn't even lift a single finger because all of the restrictions placed wouldn't allow her. That's why her emotions are in a shitty state, to put it plainly. However, that crappy feeling stuck in her chest will be dropped to an even more lower point than now. Because everything has changed. Hanakai-san. Adam. Her heart skipped a beat at the familiar voice. It was impeccable timing too, as the voice was the person she thought about just now. Taking a deep breath, she controlled her erratic emotions. She doesn't want the boy to worry about her because of it. Raising her lowered head, she greeted her favorite classmate with a cheerful smile as usual. Intended to. Good morning, Haidu-ku. She couldn't complete her sentence. It got stuck in her throat completely. She wasn't lost for words because of his changed presence into a devil. Considering the threat of the fallen angel and Grimmery Senpai's invested interest, she just put two and two together. Not many people could decline the sweet allure of being a devil, herself being the prime example. Getting a safe haven and a concrete guide for avoiding danger are attractive notions too. But that's not what made her stumped in her greetings. No, what makes her hesitant about her next words is how foreign his expression is directed to her. After all. Good morning, Hanakai-san. The boy is not the same person as yesterday anymore. If she paid attention to the tone of his voice, she would notice the irregularity of it immediately. Compared to usual, his greeting was quite off, almost mechanical. You say good morning, but… Hi do Issei, the former human was looking at her straight to her eyes. That itself is no problem. What's making her body involuntarily tensed is how he stares at her. Most of all, he kept his distance from her, as if he was looking at someone not to be trusted. His eyes. It's not a good one for me, sadly. Is full of caution and suspicion toward her. Tens of minutes ago, Issei's point of view. My life is truly bizarre, isn't it? Muttering that, he looked up at the blue, clear sky absent-mindedly. Starting with the conclusion, his terraformation of becoming a dragonoid was a success. No, the word success was underselling it. His current body is a 1 in a million miracle if Drake uses the past Sekiryute's case as a standard line. There was no rejection from his new body. Drake even commented in surprise at how seamlessly this new physique working for them. It also showed the high compatibility between the two of them, possibly the highest in history. How is it, Drake? To avoid being seen with looks as if he was a lunatic, he communicated with his draconic partner in a public place telepathically. He also changed his way of speaking in a frank manner, as trusting with each other, but talking politely is just weird. For his newly transformed partner's question, Drake answered him, albeit in a trembling voice. It's immense. A very long time has passed since my sealing. So it's been a long time since I have felt all of this again. Hearing his voice filled with overwhelming emotions, Issei's eyes softened naturally. He couldn't sympathize with being sealed for generations to generations, but he could understand how impactful this moment was on him. His third reason for letting his body right shared with the dragon. The main purpose is to help each other, but it is also for the Crimson Dragon to experience all of this again. What it means to live. Thousands of years. That amount of time past brought great changes to everything. Mountains getting flat and eroded, countries destroyed and rebuilt, and seas dried up resulting in canyons. And yet, only Drake himself was unchanged. Worse, his soul and powers are not his to control either. All of that was selfishly directed at his past hosts, regardless of being used for evil or good. It was more cruel than slavery. Slaves have their own will too, even if it's mostly controlled by their master. However, the dragon was solely a puppet exploited for humans according to their needs only. It makes him numb, forgetting the sensation of being alive. The winds touching your face, the legs moving forward, how you breathe from your nose, how you change expressions, how you blink your eyes. Trailing off, the shared sense makes his view full of the blue-colored sky, filled with clouds. It was supposed to be a common scene to him, but sharing Issei's body as his own makes it all different to him. His field. Where he could reign as the emperor. When he was titled the Red Dragon of Domination. The sky. It was so much wider than usual. Finishing, his voice is a touch heavier. If Issei is not imagining it wrong, his partner is choked to tears of bubbling emotions due to sensory overload. It was quite surreal for the former supreme ruler to feel this sentimental. But, he didn't point it out. Instead, he chuckled wryly for his realization. Humans, dragons, devils, and fallen angels. All of them are not much different if you exclude their respective traits. They all are individuals who feel and act for themselves. My choice was not wrong. But this, he was completely sure. He didn't make a wrong choice. In the future, no matter how much people point fingers at him, he'll never regret this decision. For he was able to make his partner happy again. That is something no amount of money or power able to be obtained. With a melancholic smile, he soothes the dragon in his soul softly. One day we could go there together. You could experience endless freedom up there. Yeah, I really could, huh? Sharing bodies means experiencing each other emotions. It's a bit of a struggle, but not strange if they get used to it. However, what makes it a bit awkward is knowing that the big-ass dragon is crying openly in his mind. Well, he won't say much. Let the big guy have his moment. However, when he reminisced about the talk with his parents just a moment ago, his face darkened abruptly. Both of his fists are unconsciously shaped into fists, nailing his palm. Amanuyuma. Who is that, Issei? Your new friend. His mother didn't recognize the name at all. Goru, his father looked at him strangely too. Both of them showed no sign of pretense, nor needing it either. He was speechless for a few moments, but it led him to a very inhumane hypothesis. Their memories for these few days have been changed. For what, it wasn't that hard for him to figure it out. They want to eliminate any chance of the normal populace noticing the supernatural. What's weird though, the signs of magic used are not from Raynare, but from the devils. His supposed neighbors not only infiltrated his house, they also tampered with his parents' minds. Sensing his conflicting emotions, Drake wakes up from the stupor and focuses on his partner. His melancholy could wait, the boy needs his help more than ever. Issei, I get that you are angry. It's perfectly understandable after what your parents just experienced. But. I know. Taking a few deep breaths, Issei calmed his raging emotions down. One side effect of becoming the dragon is becoming emotional easily. To Issei, it was strangely nostalgic, remembering his bratty moments as a child. On the bright side though, Drake occupying his soul completely won't make it get berserk and uncontrollable. It won't be a big hurdle adapting to this change, as annoying as it may be. What's not acceptable is how much dastardly action these devils have done to him and his family. Drake, any sign of mind control? Thankfully, none. It was just the memories of the fallen. Thank goodness. He sighs a huge breath of relief hearing that. If he considers solely from his experience, the devil's modus operandi is mainly manipulation and deceit. Since he became a devil unwillingly, it wasn't a stretch for his parents to become mindless slaves if needed. For what, it's disgustingly effective for him to not betray them. Because it's going to work, spectacularly. His parents are not only his reverse scale, but his biggest weak spot. Since they're not, that means the devils have a semblance of morality, even if it's low as it is. Speaking of them though. Nobody's watching us. No one. I stretched our senses to hundreds of meters, but nothing got caught up. They just reincarnate and leave you alone, strange as that sounds. How weird. Spoken out loud in a low voice, he furrowed his brows at their confusing actions while walking to school. Reincarnating him while he's in near dead situation gave him mixed signals. On one side, he could see the devils require him to be alive for his sacred gear. Currently, it's unknown whether they know about Drake or not, but hopefully, they don't. When the time they ask about it, he'll only introduce it as the small gauntlet in his left arm, twice critical. It was the initial state of boosted gear and widely common ones too, modeled from the Crimson Dragon's power. Issei wants to hide the dragon's existence as long as possible to be his final trump card. While Drake felt a bit complicated, he ultimately understood and accepted Issei's suggestion if it came to that. Nothing would do good, gaining extra attention when they couldn't handle it. As for the sensors spoken by Drake, it's one of his obtained abilities to become a hybrid of dragon and devils. Not only did his body get stronger, but his eyes, nose, ears, and sense of touch became tens of times sharper. If Drake didn't share his body and help to give him, his brain would have acute headaches, experiencing an overflow of new sensations flowing through. Relying on the dragon as the main driver, they could pick up enemies that'll attack him, losing their surprise element. Although, if Drake himself didn't pick up anything, then they truly left him alone. He also looked around carefully for any prying gazes, but not even a speck of shadow caught up with his evolved eyes either. Are we thinking this too much? On the other hand, the making him his or her servant means his opinions are painfully irrelevant to the decision-making process. After preparing for the worst, however, both Drake and Issei are left in confusion about how easy it is on his way to school without much trouble. There was no sign of fallen angels coming to finish the job either. So why? Issei. Called by his name in mind, the draconic boy stopped walking momentarily. When he tilted his head in confusion at the sudden call, his whole body was tensed stiff suddenly. Then, he directs his eyes toward his school after walking for a few minutes. Cautiously, he called his partner back in his mind. Drake, I'm not imagining it, right? No. No, you didn't. Both of them put all of their attention to Kuo Academy. To Issei, it looks the same as always. The large buildings, the wide garden fields, and the sea of students entering it for their daily class. However, that's not what made him stop moving. The number of foreign presences assaulting his senses from the entire area makes him so. It has the same signature coming from his parents too. All of it was coming from said school itself, which was obvious in hindsight. No wonder. His school was a nest for devils. They don't need to monitor you at all times. It also explained why the fallen didn't make a move either. Agreeing with his partner inwardly, Issei pursed his lips while looking at his school with narrowed eyes. It was supposed to be a place for study, but Issei looked at it as if it was a dungeon where traps could spring out any moment. Most importantly, the person who was assigned to check the students coming in. He knows that person quite well. To be specific, he supposedly knew her. Her silver hair and turquoise eyes are her telling traits, but that's not all. Anakai-san. His sensor picked up her real race, which made her more foreign than ever. Walking to the front gate slowly, he calmly walked to his classmate in cautious steps. "Good morning, Hanakai-san." Greeting her, the girl raised her head immediately. If Issei was in a normal state, he would be in worry that her action could snap her neck badly. Sadly, he was not in his usual self. To him, this seemingly harmless girl in front of him could be a possible enemy. "Good morning, Haidu-ku." She wasn't able to continue her words after looking at his face. While he didn't know what expression he was currently making, it was definitely not a good one. Her hesitant face changing from the cheerful smile tells him all he needs. In her green eyes, he could not only see her confusion and surprise, but also her recognition of his changed state. His presence of dragonoid is minimized to the extreme. Unless another dragon or people with sharp senses, she can only sense him being a devil now. Then, there's no room for mistakes anymore. You say good morning, but… Cutting off the middle way, he looked at her with narrowed eyes. Perhaps recognizing the unusual mood coming from him, her expression became more befuddled and worried. While it could be a genuine reaction, he couldn't take any more chances. Not only his life, but his parents' fate are in his hands now. Hanakai Momo is not the friend he once knew, nor a human. Therefore, he cannot interact with her the same as usual anymore. Those happy, ignorant school days are over. Both of them can't go back to that past eternally. Just like him. It's not a good one for me, sadly. She was a devil. After school time. The usual scene, classmates talking to each other, girls promising to hang out after school, etc. However, Issei didn't pay attention to any of that. Instead, he subtly views the price of Kuo Academy, Kibayudo on the corner of his eyes from his seat. As always, he's entertaining many female classmates with a polite smile on his immaculate face. However, with his sharpened sense, he could sense Kibayudo had the same darkish aura as Momo. The devil. HMPH. They don't even try to hide their presence. Agreeing inwardly with the dragon, he covertly observes Yudo's action without making him notice. Before becoming a devil, Yudo was just a typical Bishounen to him. Not envious of his looks would be a lie, but Issei didn't hate his guts. Yudo doesn't seem to be condescending to normies like him and other classmates. Although they don't have much interaction with each other, Issei sees him in a positive light. There's a good reason he was called a prince, after all. His being humble about it is just the icing on the cake, much to the ire of the boys. Smart, handsome, and polite. The guy is a perfect reflection of Bishounen depicted in light novels and anime. Moreover, it doesn't look like Yudo is stringing those girls' feelings for his amusement as a proper devil either. In fact, from Issei's point of view, it's more of him interacting with them just out of necessity without being seen as an impolite classmate. Frowning at this fact, Issei communicates with his partner inwardly. Are devils' way of life different than the past? If you are talking about taking human souls after signing their contract, that practice is still alive today. Although, looking at him and that silver-haired girl, it's a minority. That's true, Issei agreed with his partner in his mind. He expected a lot from the devils, but not this mundane. If he separates the fact of magic, wings, grand war and whatnot, they are not that different than humans themselves. To be fair, he's looking at Yudo and Momo with a new filter, as reincarnated devil. Combined with yesterday's gruesome experience, the dragonoid couldn't exactly view them as simple or harmless high school students anymore. Also, he never hears cases of missing students, mysteriously transferred away, or spooky news like that in this school. From that, Issei concludes that modern devils are not like the ones from myths. At the very least, they are not enslaving and harming humans indiscriminately. Most probably, he was a special case, judging from Momo's reaction. While thinking so, Yudo takes his attention off from the girls to Issei. They didn't make eye contact, but Issei could feel his staring from his back. As a hybrid of dragon and devil with Drake backing him up, sensing attention from people becomes second nature to him. Twisting his head to Yudo, the prince looks slightly surprised but smiles slightly with a light nod as a greeting. Issei blinks a bit at that, but also nods back to him a beat later. Then, he turned his head back while making a perplexed face. No hostility, no sign of magic being used, nothing. Perhaps we are a bit too cautious. Just like that girl, Momo, not all devils are cruel and manipulative like your savior. In fact, this thinking of manipulation itself could be wrong. Narrowing his eyes from Drake's pondering comment, he folded his hands in thought. As a supposed victim, he may be quite biased and unnecessarily wary of his new colleagues. After all, Yudo being a member of a cult club is widely known too. He unconsciously projected the terrible image of Grimmery Senpai onto all of the members without any solid basis. In other words, he's worried for nothing. War is war, but Kuo Town is definitely out of the boonies, excluding the fact that 2 heiresses make this town their base and a 6-winged fallen angel currently residing in it. Not every supernatural beings are coming to get him just because. What are you thinking seriously about? Finally getting a girl problem. Worried getting stabbed behind. While thinking, two familiar voices bring him back out of his thoughts. Raising his head, he was greeted with the teasing smiles of his best friends. Matuda. Motohama. Digesting their comments about having girl problems, he sighed slightly with a wry smile on his face. While not right, it was not wrong either. After all, Gremory-senpai and Raynare-san are girls too. Except, the nature of his worry is completely different from what they're thinking right now. Instead of getting stabbed by knives in the back, he could get blasted by something more lethal and destructive, just with a flick of their hands. Something like that. Issei. Furrowing his brow at his short offhanded response, Mitsuda looks at his bro in concern. Motohama also tilted his head questioningly from the flat reaction by Issei. Usually, he'll fool around with them a bit more and Momo will join later on. Only, the silver-haired girl immediately went out of class after the school period ended. Something about student council, from the serious look on her face. And then this. Both boys look at each other and then look at their uncrowned leader worryingly. They may fool around a lot, but both of them care for Issei genuinely. Him guiding them out from the IMMATURE pervert phase has solidified their image and good notes from the others. Instead of miserable school lives, they could enjoy their youths more happily due to Issei never giving up on them. Sensing their worries, the said boy only bitterly smiled in his mind. If it's just some love problem, it'll just end with light teasing and good-natured ribbing. Such problems are perfectly natural for high school students. However, it's nothing. He couldn't interact with them as usual anymore. Feeling signs of familiar magical residue on them, he could guess their memories of Yuma were erased by the devils too. Talking about it will open a whole can of worms. Worse, they could be a target for potential hostages if he pokes his noses unneeded where it is supposed to be. From now on, he needs to be very, very careful with every move he takes. The weight of becoming a devil, and most importantly, as Sekiryuite makes him so. His normal days are over. Issei needs to keep their distance from them, no matter how much he hates doing so. To protect both of them. Sorry guys, there's something I need to do back home. I'll talk to you later. He will cut out his feelings. Wahey Issei. Come on, man. Purposefully ignoring their protests, he walked through the door in fast paces. It was fortunate for the new reincarnated devil his back facing them. He didn't want to make them worry unnecessarily by looking at his pain-stricken face. Sensing his partner's grim determination, Drake hummed sadly but didn't say anything. What Issei had done is the most logical choice. Spilling the beans about the supernatural will just make their lives full of dangers. Even if he could convince them by showing Drake, Issei doesn't have the heart for Mitsuda and Motohama to be sacrificed for himself. Right now, Issei and Drake lack too much information to take any kind of overt action. Asking for Momo is an option, but it may raise potential problems if the members of a cult club interact with the student council without permission. All of it will be decided after meeting his new master, Ria's Gremory. In the end, this is for the best. Issei repeatedly convinces himself in his mind with such words morosely. Hurting oneself to protect others. It was uncharacteristic of him, but Issei plans to do so in the future too. His acquaintances, his friends, and his parents. Because he was different now. Becoming special forces him to do so. With heavy steps, he heads back to his home. There's much needed to do for the upcoming meeting. The main reason for prolonging his meeting with Gremory-senpai is to sharpen his arsenal. These few days are going to be the opportune time for him to prepare for the upcoming greeting. Having more cards in his pocket is never detrimental. On his way to the exit, it's not only both of his friends looking at him in concern. Yudo, the supposed club member of Issei, stared at the brown-haired boy worryingly too. He has his orders from Ria's to leave Issei alone for a while. Her words, giving Issei space to acclimatize to his new race abruptly changed. Seeing him being different than usual though, Yudo doubts whether leaving him alone is truly the best action. But, as a loyal knight of Gremory, the blonde-haired prince will never cross the received order. Therefore, this deadlock situation will prolong for a few days. Except, Ria's plan has been ruined from the start. To be precise, her standard and lack of caution make her so. Momo reporting this irregular case to Sona will accelerate and simultaneously ruin Ria's grand plan royally. Instead of gaining the upper ground in future talk, the red-haired heiress will get scolded badly by SCP and crack their relationship. Sona does not appreciate the fact Ria's couldn't handle the fallen angel's case as smartly as she thought. Most of all, Issei is not some simple regular high school boy anymore. Even though it takes her all 8 pawn pieces, highlighting his enormous potential, she didn't know about Drake at all. Not only that, her passive approach has completely ruined an unreplaceable opportunity for a solid trusting relationship between them. Her unwarranted actions, due to panic about her obligations as the heiress make this mistake. Therefore, it won't be long before she'll pay for the price of her choice. She could only live her life ignorantly until then. She truly didn't know anything. She didn't know at all. Her touching the reverse scale of the dragon means exactly to her. What is your plan, Issei? I'm sure it's not without reason you don't confront Reinsdd, Momo, and the other devils regarding your new state of affairs. On the way home, Drake inquired Issei telepathically about their future game plan. The Crimson Dragon knows Issei never acts carelessly because of momentary emotions. This speculation only amplified the more the brown-haired boy acts. While buying the things ordered by his mom at the grocery mart, Issei replied to his partner in his mind. Exploring your power more deeper. That's the main reason I extend the meeting with the occult club. Sensing his confusion, Issei continues his explanation with a serious look. I didn't get to ask about your ability of boosted gear deeper because of getting swept by becoming a dragon. So now I want to confirm. What can you boost exactly? What do you mean by that? Drake tilted his head in confusion at Issei's question. Boosting is boosting. Just like his previous hosts, all of them boosted their magic blasts, attacks, and countless more in variety. It was used in all shapes and forms, but all of it is related to combat. However, it looks like Issei is not asking in that direction. In your explanation, you said boosted gear could boost power for every 10 seconds. At first, I thought of a simple application for boosting my power output too. But. Trailing off, he continued his words meaningfully. Immensely interested in this topic, Drake pays attention to Issei more than ever by stretching his long neck. What if it's not just power? What if we could apply it to more simple things? Oh? Such as? This is interesting. As always, Haidu Issei always brings surprise after surprise to the Red Dragon. His unique perspective as a former normal human sees the supernatural through a different lens than his predecessors. All of them, either in small or big factors, have been involved with this world from the start. Only Issei was completely uninvolved until his rebirth. Maybe that's why he looks at things differently. That, and his cautious nature. Either way, it was a breath of fresh air for the ancient dragon. Continuing, Issei explained his suspicions to Drake slowly. Practice makes perfect. That applies to everything, including magic and sacred gears too. Then, how about if I apply the ability of boosted gear in my body growth by boosting it? OHH. You mean? Looks like you get it. Smiling faintly at his dragon's reaction, Issei explained his training plan of sorts. If other training maniacs hear his plan though, they will rage at him for being the epitome of unfairness. Normal muscle mass, low stamina, minimal magic pool. There are too many things I need to cover for my weaknesses. Changing my body into a dragon doesn't make it an excuse. Compared to my power level with other devils at school, there's not much difference. Then. Leaving there, Drake continues his partner's words with excitement obvious in his tone. You want to train your body and magic pool as much as possible, with boosted gear for faster progress. Indeed, if your idea is applicable, then you are the literal definition of minimum effort, maximum result. Bingo. As if influenced by his excitement, Issei also smiled with satisfaction. It was an idea anyone could think of. However, no user of booster gear ever thinks of it that way. They are too used to it. To be more precise, they are colored by the infamy of Drake, riding his coattails as the base for their actions and thinking process. Fight like a dragon. That's the modus operandi for the users of boosted gear. There are differences for each individual, but every one of them acts like the supreme predator to other people. All of them never think of implementing mundane exercises with boosted gear. The closest would be controlling the amount of boost used for their attack skill during their free time. Issei is different. His status as a beginner in this world, combined with his low physique due to being a former simple human, makes him think. How to get stronger, how to be better, and what to do during a crisis. Think, and more thinking. He never stops his thinking process. Becoming a Sekiryuite didn't let him stop. Instead of being complacent though, it drives his motivation to be stronger. Everything could begin smoothly if you have the capability for it. To put it simply, he never put his hope on an uncertain factor, which is Ria's Gremory senpai. She may be a kind master, a school idol, and an heiress of a prestigious family. But all of that means an iota amount of crap to him. If Issei wants to be more direct, it's meaningless shit. After all, his parents are not under her jurisdiction. In her eyes, he's most probably just a new unique servant, not worth extending her protection for simple humans. The way she treated his parents is the decisive factor for Issei. If she cared for his opinion, then she would ask first before doing anything to his mom and dad. In other words, both of them have completely different priorities on what they think is important. If money and status are greatly valued in human society, power is the biggest factor for almost everything in the supernatural. Since Issei have boosted gear and Drake as a personal asset, he'll focus on himself more, rather than making good relationship with the devils. Hahaha. Good, very good, Issei. You really are the most unique host I ever had. Understanding his partner's way of thinking, Dre laughs boisterously. As a dragon, he greatly treasured independence more than normal. Instead of relying on the devils that exploited them, the Crimson Dragon greatly approves of Issei's independence. Chuckling at the dragon's enthusiasm, he pays the bill to the cashier. While heading to the exit, his steps are lighter than usual. If this idea flourishes even a little bit, his future prospects won't be doom and gloom. At the very least, he won't get pulled here and there unreasonably without a reason. Estimating his given time, 3 days is the shortest period. If he sees optimistically, 1 week maximum. More than that, the devils will be suspicious of why Issei could be that calm even after knowing his predicament. Either way, it was a golden time for the newly reincarnated devil. The rest is left to him on how to use the given time as best as he can. Combine his growth with Drake's guidance, boosted gear as natural doping and high potential as an evolving dragonoid. It's not unreasonable for him to expect good progress. Humming slightly in response to his rising mood, he walked toward his home at a faster pace than normal. Strike the iron while it's hot. The night will be quite long for these few days. Imagining his upcoming plan to be fruitful, it's not unreasonable for his worries will be lessened. If everything goes as he planned. Didn't someone quote a famous line? Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. While walking, he spots a man wearing a thick fedora hat and a hat covering half of his upper face. While Issei thought it weird fashion in the middle of spring, he shrugs it off thinking to each of their own. Drake didn't give him any heads up, which means the man is just a normal person. Which was fatal to him. Even though Issei may be cautious, he's still a complete rookie in the supernatural world. No matter how careful he is, there's going to be gaps left in his approach. That's the absolute difference between those with experience and not. Slowly passing by the normal guy. Be careful on your way home, child. Such words whispered to his ears without any warning. Turning back immediately, there is no sign of said man anymore. No matter how much he looks around, the man disappears from his eyes. As if he was a ghost. Now, he was in complete alert mode. Transforming his eye pupil into slits like a snake, he meticulously looks around at his surrounding. As a precaution, he even contacts his trustworthy partner in his mind. Greg. I know. TCH, I was careless. I never thought this small town had an expert that could bypass a dragon's sense. Looks like he was not imagining it. From the panicked reaction given by the dragon, that man was not normal. Issei would even put him higher danger level than the devils loitering in his school. He was getting neared. Without being noticed. With no kind of signal until in point-blank distance. If that man desired so, his body would be left in the street, with no one the wiser. Any sign of magic used on us? No. At least, I don't think so. Biting his lips at the ambiguous words used, Issei scowls heavily at the terrible implication. Even if he was transformed into a dragon, it was still incomplete. At best, it was only 10% of his entire biology. Even if Drake helped him, there's always a limit with poor equipment, even if the user's skill was top-notch. Goosebumps ran through his entire body. This is not the first time he experienced a close brush with death, but it's still terrifying for the former normal boy. He was one step away from it, literally. The silver lining of it, he was still alive. This means that man makes contact with him with a purpose other than assassination. For what, he couldn't even imagine about it. He's just grateful he was still left in one piece unscathed, hopefully. Taking a few deep breaths, Issei sharpened his eyes while continuing to walk toward his home once again. A few minutes ago, he was in upbeat mode for having a sliver of breathing room. Now, he berated himself for being stupidly careless, being happy about it. He never escaped from the danger. Greg, that idea I just said. Let's hope it works. If not, I give you full permission to completely change my body, damn the consequences. Grimacing at the determined tone used by Issei, Drake only nods powerlessly. Both of them know how disastrous will it be, but there's no more option left. Even before contacting the devils, their lives will be snuffed out. Moreover, with this, Issei will never be complacent anymore. Longinus or not, it's useless if he couldn't use it to his full potential. No matter how much power he gained, there's always someone better. Issei, it was an instant, but his smell is familiar to me. Perking up, the boy continues walking while keeping his guard up. Do you know who he is? No. I never met him before, even before or after sealed. But his presence was undoubtedly a fallen angel. From those unexpected words, he stopped his feet but continued walking a beat later. Even though his expression was neutral, his mind was in complete turmoil. Just this morning, he predicted that Raynare or her manipulator was still aiming him for their plan. While another fallen angel was not unexpected, it was worrying news to the boy. What the hell is going on, really? He was left alive but felt spooky for no apparent reason letting him so. No matter how much he thinks about it, no concrete or possible answer comes out. Even Drake himself could only shake his head incredulously with these peculiar events happening around them. From start to finish, Issei's surroundings are full of questions and uncertainties. Having those thoughts, his steps are faster than ever but full of anxiety. Looks like squad leader was right. If Issei looked up, he could find the said fedora man at the top of the building. Unfortunately, the man has designed for the boy to never find out about him until that last moment. Among his colleagues, he was the most proficient in hiding his presence. Some may even say that it's his inborn trait. Under his hat shadowing his eyes, the amethyst color was hidden from it. Anyone with little knowledge will know that he's a fallen angel for having that unique pupil color. No other race could have nor able to replicate it perfectly. Braig was right. This man, Donasek, was also a fallen angel assigned to this town with Raynare, his squad leader. Just this morning, he was given an assignment to observe the boy she killed yesterday. At that time, he furrowed his brow questionably at her. Why didn't she erase his body after finishing the job? Usually, she never leaves loose ends, particularly when they knew this area was the devil's habitat. Just humor me. You'll find something interesting. Tilting his head at her cryptic word sideways, he followed her orders dutifully. Both of them have known each other for centuries. He knows Raynare won't spout some nonsense to egg him on useless things. Which was right. In fact, interesting doesn't cover it. Shock-shelled would be an apt description, finding the true nature of that boy. The dragon. Frowning at this unexpected finding, he continued to observe this newly reincarnated devil. Well, it's a shame that human with sacred gear become their enemy, Donasek focuses on his observation. He was not mistaken. At that time, and even now, he could even sense that unmistakable draconic presence. Some sacred gears emitted that kind of residue depending on its nature, but the boy's was several magnitude bigger in scale. Moreover, it was controlled. A bit sloppy, but unsuppressed by said boy. A mundane human who didn't even know about the supernatural until yesterday. However, he never misrecognized that existence even once. Donasek knows that unique presence. Even though millenniums have passed, he still quakes his boots in fear, reminiscing about the red dragon rampaging the battlefield. While folding his hand in thought with a severe face, a magic circle appeared on his right ear. Not surprised by the call, the man put his hand on his ear to activate the call. Donasek here. How was it, Seek? A smooth, beautiful voice reverberates in his ears. Although the voice was clear like a bell, the no-nonsense tone was used to express the all business for the upcoming talk. Which is fair. After all, the person was his squad leader, Raynare-sama. Their suspicions were right, squad leader. The boy was reincarnated by the devil Grimory. Moreover, having a draconic smell. As if knowing for his next words, Raynare cut off the rest of it. Donasek didn't feel annoyed by the interruptions. Instead, he blinked his eyes hearing her words. Did you? If about knowing the kid having a draconic sacred gear, I had a hunch. Well, not as sharp as you, I was near him for a whole day. Which is reasonable. Donasek has the best sensory abilities among them, while Raynare-sama is focused on leadership and a little bit of everything. Of course, that doesn't mean she is weak. Rather, she was the strongest in their circle. Fallen angels don't earn title and position with minuscule ability. I'm not asking you the obvious, Seek. Both of us know we are too jaded for having useless pleasantries. I'm asking if you could recognize it. This time, there are a few trembles on his eyebrow. Clenching his fists, Donasek continues his words, albeit more carefully. Because it was that serious. Squad leader, I know that presence. There's no way I could mistake it. It was crimson. Hearing that code word, there was a sucking deep breath sound reverberating from his ears. It was not hard to imagine how shocked she was after hearing that of all things. Are you very sure? Yes, squad leader. I swore on my wings. If fallen angels swore on their wings, then there's no need to doubt his words anymore. It was a cold, hard fact. Issei was the current generation of Sekiryuite. This is fucking messed up. The curse ran through his ear roughly, but Donasek himself didn't refute her words. He even lets out an uncharacteristic bitter smile on his face. Even he knew how severe their situation was now. Their simple mission of eliminating that boy had become much more complicated. What should we do now? What he truly means is, should I eliminate that boy before he becomes a threat? His fears are not unwarranted. Considering past Sekiryuite's infamy, it's best to nip the bud while they can. Moreover, Donasek doesn't want the devil's side to have more formidable allies on them any more than now. Contrary to his hopes though, Raynare snorted in morbid amusement. Yeah, if you want to sign a death warrant by the Citrian Grimory, go ahead. I won't stop you. But, remember. You're left alone after that. I apologize, it was rash of me. Lowering his head in apology, the man wore a regretful expression hearing her words. While Raynor's comments are very cold, even callous, Issei didn't protest it. Both of them are very territorial on their families, even if it's extended ones. Their meanings are crystal clear. Don't overstep your bounds. If he killed the boy, Issei wouldn't blame Raynor for cutting him off. After all, he would do the same too. There are too many big political landmines to not take careless actions in this town. All three sides are at the end of the rope to not have another Armageddon. Changing gears, he continues his report to his boss. Anything else I should know? The boy is very cautious. From my understanding, it almost looks like he didn't trust the devils. What? Hearing her confusion and incredulity, Issei continues his words succinctly. Even he found it a bit weird too. The Grimoire does not mistreat their families. The current head of Grimoire proves that. After receiving his observation report, Raynor was silent for a moment. Accepting her silence as a sign to continue, Issei carried on with his findings. One more thing. He didn't meet up with his master, nor try to communicate with Issei either. If I may, he's left alone. What the fuck are these shitty devils planning? On that, Issei himself doesn't have a good answer. The protocol for receiving newcomers is to let them in the system as fast and in detail as they can. If they think about Issei's situation, more so than ever. Last of all, the boy himself. The devils themselves are weird, but the current security is even more peculiar than them. Having a little doubt is not wrong. That's something to be praised for in this world. Still, there's a limit for it. If the man is not reading it wrong, the boy is. Avoiding them? Muttering those unconsciously, the man cups his chin in thought. Why though? Isn't it ideal for him to be in the loop in his current situation? Why would he avoid running to other devils? However, Raynor thinks differently. Instead, she gets a vague direction for knowing Issei's intention. Is that so? Squad leader? Hearing her, Issei tilted his head sideways. If he's not imagining it, she sounds interested and impressed. Moreover, she was even chuckling. Who was famous for being called cold bitch during work time is snickering happily. Hey Seek. When you go near the boy, is the gear dormanter active? Active? But how does? Hold on. Stopping midway, he narrowed his eyes in thought. Activating a sacred gear from near-death situation is common. It responds to its user's emotions, and the easier to awaken the stronger their feelings are. But longiness is a whole different breed. Something like that needs more than just strong emotions. The user needs to have qualifications such as good compatibility, a robust physique, and many other possible requirements. And yet, Issei was able to awaken booster gear in just one day. Not only that, Drake Gotch was awakened. There's no mistaking that. Confident of his ability, there's no room for error. Issei has skipped the process of twice critical into booster gear. On why, he couldn't know. What happened has happened. If he combines this fact with all the other information gathered. I see. Looks like you get it. Yes, squad leader. Issei is not loyal to the devils. To be more precise, he's suspicious of the Grimoire who revived him. It was only a hypothesis, but a probable one. Instead of being subservient to the devils, he wanted to find another way for his independence. A bit naive, but not wrong thinking that. He didn't know yet evil pieces are not reversible. Shall we recruit him? Instantly, the man requested an opposite suggestion minutes before. If the security could be brought to their side, the red and the white one could fall to their hands. In the entire history of fallen angels, it never happened. His getting excited about it is not strange. However, his excitement gets doused by his boss's humorless chuckle. Hey Seek. Where exactly are we now? I am sorry. It's fine. I get what you are saying. Again, his boss has said it, but this is the devil's territory. Not just Citri and Grimoire, but in the worst case, their top gunner will come to protect Issei when knowing his value. In the end, Issei is just saying an impossible future. If that comes, Azazel couldn't even beat their bosses in direct confrontations. The power level gap is just too big. However, Raynor didn't fully reject his words either. Looks like we can use this. Ma'am? Listen to me very carefully, Issei. Immediately, he straightened his spine hearing her tone that brokered no argument. She only used it when in severe situations. Which they are. Raynor knows the most how much danger circumstances they are currently in. The more Raynor speaks through the magic circle, the more Issei feels his face getting pale. People would even freak out at how whitish his expression has become. Gulping, Issei asks back to her boss. He trusted her a lot, but he had to ask back. She was asking him for a whole lot heavier role than required. Are you sure, squad leader? Yes. It was one single word, but the grim determination could be felt to him. The fedora man grimaced to be involved in this mess unexpectedly, but didn't refute back. He knew how precocious state they were after hearing from Raynor's side. I understand. Good. Go back to the base. We need to talk about this with the other two. Your current mission is done. Roger. Finishing with that, the magic circle disappears. He sighed tiredly after receiving all this bombshell information, but he could only wing it. Their lives are on the line now. Not just that. Tiled, be strong. Your mettle is being tested right now. Looking at the fading boy's silhouette with complicated feelings, he unfurled his 6 black wings on his back. His destination. The rundown church. If everything goes well, the fallen angel could get a potentially remarkable powerhouse as an ally. However, if anything, even if the smallest bit goes wrong though. God help us. Whispering his irrelevant prayers, he continued to fly toward his base. He needs to prepare for what's going to come. War is on the horizon. And it's coming to them. Fallen angel is what people called half-assed in the supernatural community. Even though they are created as messengers of peace and love, they fall into depravity. Of course, this excludes the ones who are born naturally though. All of them still cling to some habits during their angel days, but they also have their debauchery quirks after becoming fallen angels. That's why most fallen habitually used old abandoned churches as their home base for one area. In a way, it's paying homage to their creator while debasing it for their corrupted plan. At this one abandoned church at Kuo Town was used for the so-called sheep who lost their way without permission. Hey, why are you wearing that bitchy face all the time recently? What, having a period? Middled, for the love of decency, please don't be a fucking brat to your boss. Yeah, Miss Prim and proper call a mommy. A petite blonde-haired girl wearing a black frilly gothic dress grumbled unsatisfactorily to her conversational partner, while her opposite just sighed resignedly at her bratty response. Alwerner, a buxom blue-haired lady who is quite tall compared to the average female's height, couldn't help but look exasperatedly at her frustrating colleagues. If Middle's appearance is cute and the personification of a she-devil, Calwerner is the seductive woman with her long hair covering one of her alluring eyes while wearing a one-piece coat. Both of them have contrasting traits, but actually, they are quite close in private too. Sometimes, all of those annoying quirks can be endearing after both risked their lives for each other during the Great War. Well, still annoying though. She's not wrong. Outwardly, Kala scolds her partner for having decency, but inwardly she agrees with Middle. These days, Raynare, their boss, constantly wears a grumpy face more than usual. While not as extreme as Middle saying having a period, she's not that suicidal. It was true that their leader is experiencing a constant bad mood almost all of the time. As if saying so, the said woman, Raynare, who wore the black battle dress just like Issei saw her last week, looked at them briefly with narrowed eyes. Moreover, her way of expressing "I am super angry and nobody could stop me" by folding her hands below her chest is quite striking. Looking at her current state, Kala and Middle winced a bit. Usually, she snapped at them with sarcastic words filled with thorns. Now though? She just stared at them menacingly, her sharp eyes glinting. It was seriously scary, no joking about it. "Leader, can I ask why you are angry? If I'm at fault, I apologize beforehand." Alwerner was the first one who raised her hands in surrender. Whatever it is, she does not want to get the brunt of her royal ire. Heck, she'll even offer Middle as her punching bag if needed. Her words are quite meek for a prideful fallen angel. The Lolita even looks at her with contempt, openly, like she's the most miserable person in the entire world. Calwerner noticed it, and she swore inwardly to smack that fucking rascal hard later. As for Raynare, she only stares at Kala's tearful face for a moment. Then, as if she found it funny, she snorted in amusement, letting out a wry smile. "It's fine. Sorry girls. I'm having a bad moment, so to speak." Both of them blink repeatedly at her uncharacteristic admission. This is someone who could headbutt their supreme general governor openly in an official meeting. And that same person is apologizing first. Okay, spill it out. What the hell's wrong with you? I'm getting goosebumps hearing you saying sorry. Well, not extreme like that stupid brat, I agree. Is there something concerning you, leader? One is abrasive while another is gentle in asking their inquiries. Although, the feelings behind their words are the same. It was a genuine care for Raynare's well-being. Looking at her old friends, her heart is filled with warmth. Most of the time, they quarrel with each other for stupid things. But when things go down, they support each other's backs without being asked. She's truly blessed, isn't she? Sighing melancholically, she faces them both with a tender smile. Both of them were quite shocked seeing her like this, seemingly soft and gentle. Middle even thinks she's hallucinating badly after drinking too much yesterday. Although, that was just a split moment. After hearing their last member announcing his arrival from the communication magic, she wears her game face instantly. The other two are a bit dazed by her constant change, but they also change gears looking at her focused expression. Their playtime was done. Now is the time for work. As if it was decided beforehand, Donasik, the last member of the squad, appeared in a glowing magical circle on the ground in perfect timing. With this, all four are finally gathered for the meeting. Leader, I'm back. Good work, Seek. Any troubles? None, I was able to arrive safely with no interruptions. Nodding in understanding, she ordered them to sit on the chairs. After all, this is going to be a very long and sobering talk for the rest of their long night. When they were seated properly, Raynare took a few deep breaths to prepare herself mentally. What she's going to say is going to be groundbreaking on so many levels that it's not even funny. First, Seek is going to explain his findings about the mission I gave him this morning. It'll help the talk later on. Perceiving it as a signal for his turn, the man nods silently and opens his mouth to explain his results succinctly. The more he spoke though, the more Raynare and Middle changed their expressions throughout the explanation. Whoa. Goddamn, that kiddo is the security. What kind of devilish luck does the Grimoire have? It was surprising, to say the least. They never thought this seemingly small town gathered many high-profile people in all kinds of manners. Not only two heiresses of devils, them the six-winged, and now Issei as the current red dragon of domination. Moreover, that said dragon boy had fallen into the devil's hands. Complicated doesn't cover their current feeling. The one whom they were assigned to kill got saved and poached by their archenemy. Most of all, the said personnel this time could go big. But that's not what concerned them most. Well, it's an important point, it has already passed. No, what's peculiar is their boss's actions on this job. Middle is the first one who spoke her opinion. Since this is work time, her posture is more formal than usual, raising her hand to speak her piece. Hey, boss. I don't mean to slander you, but aren't you sloppy? Even if it was quite disrespectful, the blonde-haired Lolita couldn't help but feel that way. After all, this is the Raynare they are talking about. While not a super agent who won't fail the given work, her rate of success is always 9 out of 10 for centuries. This mission is not considered to be 1 out of 10, hell no. Because it was supposed to be just a simple job. Middled. Raynare called out to her in a warning tone, but said girl just shrugged her shoulders. She knows she's out of line a little bit, but what's crucial needs to be said. That doesn't mean she doesn't trust her superior though. As proof, her words are filled with confusion and curiosity, instead of accusation. The blue-haired woman has the same opinion but keeps it to herself. Fieldwork is always filled with uncertainties and surprise factors. Most of all, this is the Grimoire and Citri's ground field. It's not hard to imagine there are hiccups along the operation. As if understanding both opinions, Raynare only raises her hand and waves it sideways, showing her not being offended by them. If she was in their position, she would feel the same too. It's fine, I get it. Only a fool leaves the kid's body fully knowing there's going to be a thief who takes it. She was nonchalant about it. So much so that all three of them feel incredulous about her criticizing herself for making a beginner mistake. The black-haired angel knows how stupid she had done at that time too. The smart thing to do is to either burn his body to oblivion or bring it to her base for further purposes if needed. But she didn't do so. Rather, she doesn't want to. Raynare confesses her inner feelings in a whispered voice filled with remorse. I want to let him live. All three of them had differing reactions, but astonishment was commonly shown in their expression. Raynare even feels she just got bonked on her head by a sledgehammer after hearing that of all things by her leader. Whoa time. Time out. Standing up from her seat abruptly, Middle flailed her hands around in a comedic manner. Although it was kind of cute, her flustered face reflected her shock hearing that comment from Raynare. Pointing her trembling finger to her boss who looks downward, she speaks albeit hesitantly. We are assigned here to finish him right. A nod. And you did it. Slightly delayed than usual, Raynare nods her head again. If Middle is not imagining it, her boss looks aggrieved for doing so. Well, curious about her reaction, she continues her question. So you let him get taken by those bats? A nod. Even knowing he'll be their slave. Brit. This time, there was a sound of gnashing teeth quite loudly for the other three to hear it. Other than that, she didn't show any other excessive reaction other than another nod. Hearing all of the answers given, Middle looked at Raynare strangely, as if she was truly seeing her for the first time. Okay, I'm officially confused. Boss, you need to give me context here. Otherwise, I'm going to label you as bipolar lady from now on. Middle. What? I'm sure you thought about it after hearing about her actions. What do you call it other than bipolar a two-faced bitch? Have some respect, you fucking idiot. That's your direct superior. I call it whatever I want, you bimbo. Witnessing their low-level bickering exasperatedly, Seek, the lone man in this group only rubs his temple tiredly. They are the so-called Spear of Grigori and are feared by the other forces of the supernatural. Looking at them like this though, sometimes he wondered morosely why he got assigned to a squad equivalent to a mental asylum. Gazing at the lone man beside her sympathetically, Raynare pats his shoulder silently as a sign of support. She knew exactly how he feels right now. When talking to her pervert boss, Raynare wanted to bash her head to the floor, wishing to end this insanity. Well, their stupid dad won't let them. Fucking Slavadriver, she cusses hatefully in her mind. Backing her mind to track, she cleared her throat quite loudly for these two idiots to stop their fights. Well, it's nice to see it for stress relief, now is not the time nor the place for it. Okay, that's enough. As amusing as this is, I need you ladies to stop your flirting. Who's flirting who? Both of you? Their lines are even cinching perfectly, word to word. Want to me rip those pretty little mouths. My hands have been kind of itchy since this morning. Smiling prettily while closing her eyes, she asked both of them nicely. The blue and blonde pair feel their face getting pale immediately, hearing that terror statement. Almost a second later, Middlet and Calwarner shook their hands with stiff smiles on their faces, as if their fight a moment ago was an illusion. They do not want to get beaten by her of all people. Best friends. Good, sit down quietly. Yes ma'am. Now, I'm going to defend myself before getting labeled as mentally unstable. Ah, she's taking a grudge, isn't she? With tears pouring out in her mind, Middlet was half resigned being subjected to her punishment later on. Knowing his partner's thoughts, Calwarner covered her snickers with her hands. Serves her right. That's why you need to be polite to your boss. Shaking her head bemusedly at her silly subordinates, she explained her contradicting reasons toward Issei. Actually, I didn't want to kill him. Originally, I just wanted to seal his memories about me in sacred gear, booster gear or not. That was unexpectedly kind of her. Disregarding her action of disobeying direct orders from the top, they all look at her confusedly, but do not show contempt for it. The trio are fallen angels, but that doesn't mean they like murdering innocent kids. They are not heartless monsters. It's very uncharacteristic of Raynare to try to let the mundane boy live blissfully, away from the supernatural. Middlet even snorted openly, as if telling that her boss, of all people showing mercy, was ridiculous. What? You have feelings for the kid? That why you become moody these few days? She expected some snapping remarks or another death glare given by her boss. The Raynare Middlet knew would never involve personal feelings to their job, after all. What she didn't expect was Raynare getting a pink face while fiddling with her long hair in a shy manner. If she didn't know her personally, she'd describe her current state just like a girl who found love for the first time. Moreover, she didn't deny her sarcastic words either. Holy shit, seriously? Seeing her acting like a bashful maiden, dumbfounded doesn't express her shock. She was completely bamboozled by this unexpected reason out of the blue. Even Calwarner and Donaseek look at their leader disbelievingly. Their leader has been compromised because of a kid whose age is less than the 20s. This was a woman who could punch their supreme general in the chin, who made a pass to her. Well, their governor is a known pervert, not even Middlet would dare to be that disrespectful to him. And now, that kind of woman has a crush on her target. Damn, now I want to meet the kid. Kudos to him. Middlet nodded approvingly to the guy who never met. Someone who could tame their boss is legitimately incredible. If possible, she wants to give the boy a high five for achieving the impossible. Although. What a cradle robber. Hearing those accursed words, Raynare feels like she got gut punched metaphorically. After all, she has a semblance of awareness of how ridiculous this is. A millennium-old girl falls in love with a kid who hasn't experienced adulthood. No matter how shameless she is, Raynare couldn't refute Middlet's amusedly spoken words. She's even grateful they didn't tease her for being a cougar. A wry smile appeared on Calwarner and Donaseek's faces. Looking at her confident boss being this meek was quite a strange feeling for them. To be honest, both of them didn't care much for the years gap. The human world may be a big problem for it, but couples with big age differences until decades or even centuries are not that rare in the supernatural world. But if so, what she had done was full of inconsistency. Hold on a sec. Then why did you finish him? As if that sentence was the signal, all kinds of playfulness and light-hearted atmosphere dispersed instantly. Raynare's change of expression was even more pronounced because of it. From a lady who found happiness in a long time, she looks as if all hope had been lost for her. Middlet even winced in guilt for how downtrodden she is currently. I was forced to. What? It took her a moment to digest that. Then, a scream from Middlet's small mouth reverberates throughout the dim-lighted church. The other two didn't say anything, but their wide eyes expressed their current feeling right now. How could someone make Raynare force her to take drastic action? No one is capable in this town of her making her do so. Understanding their disbelief, she raises her bangs with her hand to let them see her forehead. Although a few days have passed, there are marks left for them to prove her words. Seeing the faint but noticeable symbol on their leader's forehead, all of them are lost for words. Then, their disbelief immediately changed to pure wrath, seeing that accursed mark slammed onto their friend. Only Donaseek has a neutral face, but his tightly clenching hands express his inner boiling anger clearly. That was a mark used during the Great War by their comrades. In the past, that symbol's name was different because of its uses at that time, but for all of its purposes and designs that was a slave command mark. It was strictly forbidden to be used for any kind of purpose. The reason can't be more clear from the name given. It was reluctantly implemented as a last resort for soldiers who lost their spirit to fight. Since they're in a ceasefire, they are not in a dire enough state to use it anymore. Seeing it on her forehead though, they finally understand her conflicting actions. Raynare was controlled by someone on their rank. "Hey boss, who the fuck is this bastard? Give me a name. I'll take out all of its organs and feed it into a dog." "Dead in line, brat. That fucker is going into a blender after getting crushed with my hands." The two women showed their displeasure greatly. Raynare may have its faults and bad moments, but she was a genuine friend and dependable comrade for a long time. Said person was subjected to killing her own crush with her hand, personally. Middled, with her soulless eyes, spat out her promise to the bastard who did this, while Raynare cracked her knuckles with a sadistic smile. Issei, always the silent one, didn't say anything, but the fedora man's burning eyes showed his determination to give the sinful ones their deserving retribution. Seeing them getting angry for her, Raynare chuckled slightly. "Well, it's endearing for their care, this time the opponent is a bad match. To be precise, it's hopeless." If they were this angry, then it was worse for Raynare herself. Her dignity, freedom, and sliver of happiness were mercilessly trampled by it after all. 2 days are more than enough to deduce who put this fucking mark on her. That was also why she didn't take any actions toward the Grimoire, no matter how much she wanted to smite that fucking bitch. She doesn't have the leisure to play around anymore. The identity of that said bastard is too much for her. Even if they combined all of their prowess, they wouldn't even reach his toenails. The big difference in power makes everything right. It was a disgusting fact, but a irrefutable truth. She can't even dispute it since that's her current situation. "I appreciate it, but it'll amount to nothing. We'll just die a dog's death." "How can you say that? This is just a cowardly bastard who doesn't even have the word pride in their tiny brain. Seriously, just give me a name and. Even if it's the Star of God." Cutting her ranting middle way, Raynare finally spoke the identity of her controller. It was an immediate change. All of their anger, which was boiling like magma, got cooled down with something resembling a blizzard. Middled even sobered up from her crazed fever instantly. That's how much weight the name spoken by Raynare. "Hey, are you serious?" "Yep." It's driving her crazy on how nonchalantly Raynare spoke it. If anyone other than them hears her, it almost makes them think she's speaking it as if it doesn't relate to her. Holy fucking shit. All of Middled's energy has been drained short. She slumped into her chair powerlessly. No matter how arrogant she is, she knows her position more than anybody else. Her 6 wings on her back clearly define her worth in their organization. Raynare was right, they'll die a dog's death fighting him openly. Hell, fighting is the polite word. If that happens, they'll get massacred in 10 seconds flat. Raynare was the first to regain her cool. Out of the 4, she was the most experienced in calming down her own raging emotions. After all, she fell due to wrath. She knew how to control it skillfully, as if flipping her hands. Why though? Why would that esteemed person do that to you? The spoken word esteem tastes like bitter ashes in her mouth. As a fallen angel, she respects that person's power only. As for his ideology or his actions toward her boss. Not even a little bit. Issei looks at Raynare's conflicted face silently while closing his eyes. During his way here, he had been informed of their situation roughly, but enough. He only needs to connect the dots to the reason being chosen for this mission. Answering her subordinate's question, instead of a direct answer, she spread her hands out toward them. "Have you ever wondered why we were assigned to this town?" Raynare blinked at the sudden question, while Middle weakly raised her head. The bombshell just now shocked her for a moment, but she's a veteran who can keep cool, not a fumbling greenhorn. "Isn't it because of precaution? The heiress of Grimoire and Citri is a big political landmine itself. Not only that, their siblings are equivalent to nuclear bombs." She's right. Initially, Raynare thought of it like that too. Nodding in understanding, she agreed to Middle's statement. "Poor 6-winged angels for eliminating one single boy who hasn't even awoken his sacred gear, nor knows about the supernatural. No matter how they look at it, it's too much. Fallen angels have deficit personnel, not excessive surplus for this extreme caution. If the area is the enemy's territory though, that explains it. Especially if said enemies have humongous backing that one could only dream of getting in their entire life." But after recent events, Raynare began to have suspicions. Many people in their ranks are bloodthirsty and condescending toward humans, but not them. Raynare personally wouldn't mind humans with sacred gears joining them. The dog squad is living proof of their supreme leader's hobby. So why did they get assigned to this job? Most of all. Why is it elimination? Not recruit but erasing Issei. You're right. Our supreme governor wouldn't give that order. He'll always say recruit them if possible. Unconsciously, Middle murmured her agreement absent-mindedly. Kalwerner and Donasek even nod their heads. That's what he'll say, definitely. Also, they silently take note of how Raynare called her target with his given name. Either that or observing the men proposing a possible alliance. From a logistic standpoint, it's more productive to have more people as allies, rather than eliminating them for risk control. Moreover, the devils wouldn't let this slide either. No matter how subtle Raynare could be, they will get alerted if someone who could potentially be their family is murdered by their archenemy in their region. But the slave command mark changed everything. More accurately, Raynare finally reached an epiphany who actually assigns this mission. This mission is not from our leader. It's our resident warmonger. The reaction was immediate. Kalwerner gasped in worry, Middle groaned loudly, while Donasek let out a long sigh, expressing his deep-seated worry for coming true. They didn't refute it. It needs confirmation, but they are 99% sure of it. Only him and Grigori that's ballsy enough to warrant this reckless act. It could only be taken as an act of aggression, no other way about it. TCH, so that's it. He needs a catalyst to press the continue button for that war. Clicking her tongue in dissatisfaction, Kalwerner raised her blue hair in an upset manner, realizing this disturbing fact. She tries to hide it by speaking calmly, but her trembling hands show how shaken she currently is. Donasek and Middle are the same. The Lolita even roughly messes with her carefully maintained hair due to a high amount of stress. As for the fedora man, he pushed his hat down to cover his despair-filled eyes. Each person varies, but all of them never, ever wanted to continue that horror show anymore. The amount of blood spilled for their causes. The number of bodies accumulated until it can build a hill. The countless separations they had experienced with their brethren. The crazed bloodshot-eyed enemies shouted hysterically for their demises. Some of them go mad from hysteria, while others become more and more callous toward death. Raynare herself was deeply spooked by how much people embraced death, as if it were their salvation wholeheartedly, enemies or not. It was hell, plain and simple. Millions lose their life because of it. That number multiplies quadruply for how many scars are left on them, physical and mental indefinitely. At that time, the fallen angels' side could finally be operated as a functioning organization after signing the ceasefire, but the process of recovery itself took decades. Some weren't able to live normally anymore. The PTSD of that war was extremely severe for all three sides. And now, it's coming again. Because of one madman who has a massive superiority complex, that catastrophic conflict is going to start for a second round. But this time, it will be utter destruction, either them or the two other side. Grimacing at their panicked reaction, Raynare calms herself down. She expected this. If she doesn't ready herself mentally before this, she will also react the same. That's how much serious shit they are in right now. Calm down, it hasn't happened yet. There's a chance we could prevent this. As a squad leader, she needs to show example. Getting scared of a potential scenario won't help them anything. What they need is a cool head to think of a solution. As if a ray of light shone them down from the darkness, all three of them whip their heads toward Raynare with hope. Only, Middle herself becomes the devil's advocate here. She looks at Raynare skeptically. How? Ray, I don't mean to damper your mood, but we're basically signed up for a suicide mission here. Moreover. Stopping, Middle's face darkened badly for a highly plausible implication after hearing Raynare's explanation. That madman is fucking crazy to the highest order. However, he's equally patient with the carefully made plan to succeed. There's no way he didn't expect retaliation. Grigori is compromised. Even if we want to request reinforcements or communication, there's no way of telling who's peaceful and who's not. We are left alone. Finishing, Middle lets out a laugh tinged with hysterics and despair. What could she do other than laugh about it? If they finish the job, then the devils will retaliate, starting another war. If they go back to their home, they could get assassinated for sealing their lips permanently. Dead bodies don't tell. The supernatural may have loopholes around it, but it's essentially the same. They have choices, but both of them are ultimately signing their death warrant. So how could they overcome this? Then we take the third option. Breaking this gloomy silence, Donasek finally speaks after being silent for a long time. Kalwerner looked at him confusedly while Middle raised her eyebrow, not expecting the silent guy butting in. Expecting their confusion, Donasek looks at Raynare for confirmation. Seeing her nodding, he gets the permission to speak. Hi to Issei. He's the key for all of this. Have you gone mad, Seek? He's just a newly reincarnated devil. What could that rookie help us in? It was a harsh comment but fair for her to be wholly unimpressed. They are in a situation for getting help even from stray cats, yes, but there are limits to it. Kalwerner felt pity for the boy, but he's their enemy now. Most of all, even if it is boosted gear, the kid has just obtained that power yesterday. There's no other apt word to describe him as a greenhorn. However, Donasek shook his head slowly in disagreement. At first, he's also doubtful whether this plan proposed by Raynare succeed. After today though, he changed his mind. Although minuscule, there's a chance. Remember what I said. Even though he was unrelated to the supernatural before this, he could awaken the boosted gear. He skips one entire step from twice critical to his current state in this short time. Stopping, he continued his words, but more slowly to emphasize his next words. Not only that, he was able to control his draconic aura. Not perfect of course, but enough for ones with the same level as him to not notice the dragon's presence. An bipitical glint arises from Donasek's narrow eyes. Raynare Sama getting interested in that boy was understandable now. Not just anyone could accept, use, and adapt to unexpected situations in a short period. Moreover, his worldview was completely flipped upside down. For him, such a feat was downright amazing. This time, Middleton Calwarner ponder his words carefully. While not fully convinced, it shows how much potential the current Securite has. Moreover, remembering the report he spoke gives them food for thought too. Now what you mention it, he's not fully loyal to the Grimoire, right? Otherwise, he'll wag his tail asking for protection and guidance. That's not all, Kala. The kid avoiding the devils also shows his skepticism toward them. Usually, people cling to their savior but not him. In other words. Trailing off, both of them look at each other, reaching the same conclusion as Donasek does. He wants to be independent. Flick. Bingo. Satisfied with their answer, Raynare flicked her fingers with a slight grin. Now they're on the same page as her. Issei may be tied to the devils, but that's just flimsy at best. He's not brainwashed by them yet nor being colored by their perception. In this town, he was the closest to the neutral side. What's your plan with him, boss? Bring him onto our folds before the devils do? Middle proposes a possible idea, but Raynare only shakes her head with a regretful face. She wants that more than anybody else, but there are too many problems with it. I killed him, Mitt. You can't just shrug off things like that. Middle grimaced at that reminder, understanding her point. She was controlled, but it's doubtful whether the kiddo could accept that answer. It's more probable he'll be suspicious of them deceiving him for lowering his guard down. No, from the start Raynare didn't hope for that. She's a realist, not an idealist who only hopes for the best. Few days later, there's going to be an exiled nun coming here, right? On that question coming out from the left side abruptly, Middle tilted her head questioningly but nodded in agreement. Yep, a cute gal named Asia Argento. Those stuck-up bastards are idiots. She's the possessor of Twilight Healing, sent to our laps for free. We're lucky to get her. The next moment though, her cheerful face becomes gloomy, imagining the poor girl's fate getting involved in this political mess. Not for her. This town could be the next war zone. She could get involved in it point blank. Calwarner and Donasek lowered their eyes sadly for that. Having a healer was always welcome for anybody, even fallen angels. Moreover, from the report given, she was a kind-hearted girl who followed the Lord's teaching faithfully. And yet, such an innocent girl was decided to be excommunicated for doing the right thing. All of them would bet it was just another bullshit from the top to keep the lies spread to their closed community alive. She was wasting her entire life, literally for following a meaningless teaching. Fallen angels could be cruel, but humans are equally worse. Then how about sending her to a safer place? Breaking this cloudy air, Raynare smirks challengingly toward them. Although she also sympathizes with the poor girl, she could make use of the situation better. A bit manipulative, she could admit that, but they're cornered into a wall. She needed to do everything to prevent the worst-case scenario. Devils like the tricks. Moreover, they are just young brats who have never experienced wars in their entire life. All of us could be their side actors for them to shine brightly. Oh. You want to lay low. Immediately, Calwarner understood her cryptic words. They have worked together for a very long time. It's not hard to decipher her intention. The other pair, short and tall respectively, also understood her, nodding in agreement. They have no qualms about it. Since they are in trouble anyway, it's best to boom flashily, distracting other people's attention. After that, 4 of them could hide under the limelight. Then, the rest is left to the nun priest and the dragon boy while they help them in shadow. What should we do with these two? From your words, they are the main actors, right? Tapping her chin in thought, she nodded a few times to herself, deciding their future role. The dice have been cast. The rest has been left for them to move accordingly. After Issei meets up with the Grimoire, that's where we strike. Instead of injuring him, test his ability by cornering him to prove Seek's words. Then. We egg his suspicions about the devils to the max. Nodding in agreement with Middle's words, Raynare continues her next words. That, and hinting him at a possible domino effect after his death. No need for everything, but just enough for him to be on his toes. Raynare only knows Issei for a few days, but adequate for her to build a profile about him. He's empathetic to his close ones and sharp in discerning people's true intentions. Combining that with his doubts regarding his current master. It's enough for him to be on guard against the devils. They don't need him to trust the fallen completely either. Just enough to know about the upcoming storm is sufficient. This is a bet. We are making him a third faction, figuratively as it is. The girl, Asia Argento, will be in his protection rather than the devils. Our fucking warmonger will make a move when he hears our disappearance, sooner or later. It was a race of time and wit. The faster the fallen quartet side informs Issei about the upcoming war, the higher the chance of their survivability. If they predict the current Security's growth correctly, it's not impossible to at least struggle with that bastard on similar ground. Balance breaker of boosted gear is truly that strong. It could make their host into a power level of the ultimate class devil if used well. Meanwhile, they will try making contact with Azazel, their leader, to discern the truth about this case after being defeated by the devils. It's not that he's completely free of suspicions, but at least it's better than twiddling their thumbs waiting for demise. Considering his obsessive interest in sacred gear, he'll take the bait when he knows about boosted gear appearing in this town. Issei, you say I'm a guardian angel. Sorry, but this is the best I could do. Smiling in self-derision, Raynard derides herself for being the worst guardian angel in the entire history. But with her limited options, this is the best idea she could make right now. Time, a bit of leeway, and a small amount of allies. In front of a gargantuan threat, such resources are pitifully insignificant in the grand scheme of things. However, Raynard still put her hope into that chance, foolish as it is. Be your best, Issei. We'll put our lives into this, just like you. For once, the fallen angel Raynard wanted to believe in miracles too. Instead of waiting for it though. She will make it into reality by her own hands. End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.